This is Nathan Fantasy Football League Updates. Today, we meet the number 16 and first playoff team in the Nathan Fantasy Football League preseason polls. We'll meet the team, and I'll tell you how they can elevate their playoff chances. All that and more next.
Nathan Fantasy Football League Updates. Welcome back to another episode here on the channel. We are back with more of the preseason polls, and this time around we have our first playoff team. That is right, the sixth team in my preseason poll rankings for my 10-team, 2-quarterback, PPR, and punter league. So, 10 teams, 6 of them make the playoffs. So the 4 teams before this, if you're just joining us, go and check out those videos. Those are the teams I don't think are making the playoffs, but this one I think sneaks in. If you're just joining us, obviously, I've already revealed the 4 teams. The 10th ranked team, the Rocky River Rough Riders. The number 9 team, the Bay City Bunnies. My number 8 team, the Grand Rapids Groundhogs. And finally, just yesterday, we revealed the number 7 team, the highest they've ever been ranked, the Zest Meisters, who I said barely missed the playoffs by about a game or 2. And that makes the question, who beats them out to get the last playoff spot? Well, before we get to that point, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment down below your opinions on not only this team and my opinions on them, but some of the other teams. Do you think those teams should have gotten this last playoff spot in your opinion? Or do you think I got this one right? And let me know in the comments if you're a fan of any of these teams that I've revealed so far. Who are you rooting for this season based on those 5 teams? But don't forget, we got 5 more to go. So let's get into this and reveal the number 6 team, the first playoff team that I think barely gets in, but they find a way in. We've already revealed 3 AFC teams in the Bunnies, the Groundhogs, and the Zest Meisters, and the 1 NFC team and the Rocky River Rough Riders. So it begs the question, no way he goes back to an AFC team, and you're right, we're going back to the NFC. And this time around, the number 6 team in my preseason polls, it's the double-managed Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels. That is right, the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels, a double-managed team as of last year by the duo of formerly known as Jadison Ween, are now known as the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels. And this is a team that obviously year 1 actually snuck into the playoffs as the 6th seed. Year 2 was bottom of the league and really struggled. So they bring in another manager. They get back into the playoffs last year as the 6th seed, and now they're going to look to sneak in again, I think, as the 6th seed, and maybe do a little bit more. And they are well on their way to doing that with the draft day trades they made. So they did the switch. If you watched episode 10, they swapped things around with the Rocky River Rough Riders. So they moved up to pick 3, traded away their 2nd round pick, and doubled up in the 3rd round. And they made good use of it, I feel like. They traded up to get one of those top 3 guys, in my opinions, which we'll get to in a minute. But let's meet the squad of the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels, and we'll start with the quarterback room. So the quarterback room, they went quarterback in the 3rd round, which obviously I think is a smart pick. The 3rd round is the prime territory for most of the quarterbacks to go, and that's pretty much where everybody got their quarterbacks if it was not in the 2nd round, as did the Bunnies and the Rocky River Rough Riders. But the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels, they went out and grabbed Joe Burrow. Yes, Joe Burrow will be the starting QB1 for this squad, and I don't mind the pick from the Flying Squirrels. I do have some question marks. Obviously, we know of the injury that happened last year. He's been injured in 2 different seasons now, and he's still pretty young for a quarterback. So a little bit of injury concerns there. And then also because of the surgery he had, I have been told that surgery kind of reduces arm strength. So is that going to be a problem for Joe Burrow? Is he going to be able to battle through it? We don't know. I think there's a lot of question marks up in the air for Joe Burrow, but I definitely don't mind him as the quarterback one in this room, as long, as he uses and utilizes Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, if T. Higgins does play. But nonetheless, I don't mind Joe Burrow being the QB1. And then you back Joe Burrow up with, honestly, a little bit of a risky pick, but it's Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is the number 1 overall pick in the fantasy, or not the fantasy league, but the NFL draft by the Chicago Bears, and the Bears have done a great job supplying him with weapons, so I don't see why Caleb Williams will not thrive offensively. He's got great weapons to throw to. He's got a solid running back in DeAndre Swift, and honestly, he's got great rushing upside as well. So as long as the offensive coordinators can scheme him a great offensive game plan, like they didn't for Justin Fields to use his rushing upside, I like the pick of Caleb Williams. It's enough risk, and when we get into the bench, you covered the risk so well, but we'll get there shortly. But overall, I don't mind the top 2 quarterbacks, but we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more later. Now we get into the running back room, and honestly, this is what bumps you down to number 6 in the polls. You lead off your lead running back as Alvin Kamara, which he's a little bit older than he used to be. We know he's got great receiving upside. He was great receiving the ball out of the backfield from Derek Carr last season. And honestly, he could have some great rushing games. So I like the pick of Alvin Kamara. I just think there were better options previously that you passed on for the wide receiver position. So I don't mind the Alvin Kamara pick, but I think there could have been other wide receivers that you fill the gap, because don't mind Alvin Kamara, but when you're running back 2 is Zamir White. That is right. Zamir White is the running back 2 for the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels. That screams red flags to me. I don't think a lot of people in our draft knew this, but Alexander Mattison actually signed with the Raiders in the offseason. I think he's the clear-cut running back 1 to take over that backfield. I don't know why Zamir White is so high in the fantasy football league draft, but he is not worth like that 60 range of picks. He is not worth anything at the running back 2 position, in my opinion. I do not like Zamir White at the running back 2 position, and I know the Flying Squirrels have already been trying to shop the possibility of acquiring some running backs from some other teams. So we'll see how that goes. But Zamir White, I'm staying clear of that dude, and hopefully you're able to get somebody off the waivers or somebody more serviceable than Zamir White, because I am out on him. I don't even see the potential there because the Raiders' offense is so bad. But then we move on to the strength of your team, which is one of the best wide receiving cores in the league, and you started it at pick 3. You moved up 1 spot, honestly, and I don't mind it because you went out and got Tyreek Hill. Jamar Chase went right after Tyreek Hill, and I think there is some separation between Tyreek Hill and Jamar Chase, and honestly, I like the pickup of Tyreek Hill. We saw what he did last year in fantasy, and that was even in with a little bit of injuries sprinkled in there, so great production from Tyreek Hill. I don't think that changes. The Miami Dolphins are going to get this man the ball. He's the fastest man in the league, and really a great wide receiver 1. Everybody knows Tyreek Hill. Not a lot bad to say about this guy. And then you pair him up with Stephon Diggs. Now, if this was Bills' Stephon Diggs, this would be a legendary wide receiving group. But it's Texans or Stephon Diggs. What does that mean? Nobody really knows. We talked about this literally in the last episode with Nico Collins. We don't know who's going to shine through as the wide receiver 1. It's a 3-man race. Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs. You've got to imagine that C.J. Stroud is going to be told, get Diggs the ball. He is an all-pro. He's this incredible receiver. We went out and got him for you, and I'm sure C.J. Stroud will not question that. But then he's built chemistry with Nico Collins and Tank Dell, so he wants to get them the ball too. And not to mention, last year, Stephon Diggs became almost the worst starting receiver in all of fantasy football and the back half of the league play. It was horrible. This man could not get over 6 targets or 6 catches and couldn't even score touchdowns. It was so bad to even try to start this guy. I don't even know how he got traded for the value he did, but Stephon Diggs is now a Texan. I think CJ Stroud will do a great job getting him to, so I don't mind him as your wide receiver too, but so many question marks, and I'm sure with Stephon Diggs, it might be an up and down year based on, obviously, is Tank Dell getting more catches? Is Nico Collins getting the red zone targets? We don't know what's going to happen in Houston, so a lot of question marks to be said. Now we move on to your tight end position, and you went out and got David Njoku. We saw Njoku kind of break out last year with the Cleveland Browns at the tight end position. And honestly, Njoku, not a bad option. I don't think he's going to be the best tight end in the fantasy football league. I think he'll have his weeks where he's really solid, but I also think he's more of the tight end where they might want to leave him in and block, and all of a sudden he's got 6 fantasy points over a 3-week span, and then he pops off for 20, and then it's back to the 6-point range. Like, he's that kind of guy where super inconsistent. So he's got great potential some weeks, but other weeks he's just going to be a dud. So I don't really know how to feel about Njoku, but I don't feel great about him at the tight end position. Now we move to your flex, and honestly, you've got a lot of options, but right now, loaded at the flex is wide receiver 3, DJ Moore. That's right, DJ Moore, and I don't necessarily mind DJ Moore. Obviously, he had a great season last year. He had some great 40-plus point games with the Bears, who was awful last year and had Justin Fields at the helm. Now they've got a better offense and more weapons and Caleb Williams. So a rookie quarterback, but DJ Moore is a deep threat type of guy, but with more weapons. It's similar to Stephon Diggs. Is DJ Moore still going to be the guy, or is Keenan Allen or Rome Odunze going to take over and take some of those targets and ruin the production of DJ Moore? Obviously, he's going to have some great weeks, but you've got to be able to call your shot right. It's going to be more of the same that I said with Stephon Diggs, very up and down. So having 2 of those receivers where it's a 3-horse race in that receiving core, don't really know how I feel about that. And that's, granted, the running back room is tough. This kind of drags you down to 6-2 is, can Stephon Diggs and DJ Moore still produce like they did last year? Now we move on to the special teamers. It's the Saints defense, which feels more like a waiver wire type of thing on and off, but obviously they play in a awful NFC South division with the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Buccaneers. I think it's a solid defense whenever they are playing those opponents, but outside of that, it might be rough. So I could see this team making a lot of defense substitutions week in and week out. Then looking at your kicker, you get the best one on the board. It's Justin Tucker. Obviously, we know he's got an incredible leg, and he can kick them from pretty much anywhere on the field. And not to mention the Ravens offense, it's really good too. He'll not only get the extra points, but if the offense stalls, some great field goal opportunities. And then you round it out with the Carolina punter, Johnny Hecker. Carolina's offense is probably still going to be terrible this year. Lots of punts on the way, like this pickup of the punter. And then we move to the bench. This is, in my opinion, the best bench in the league. It covers everywhere on the depth chart. It is very depthy. This is an awesome bench. Let's take you through it. And they lead it off strong with a QB3, honestly, who should be a QB2 somewhere. It's Trevor Lawrence. That's right. T-Law has been taken, and obviously you solidify that quarterback 3. Caleb Williams doesn't pan out. No worries. You have Trevor Lawrence. If Joe Burrow doesn't pan out, you have Trevor Lawrence. It's really good and safe and secure. And honestly, we always talk about how later on in the year, there's quarterback injuries, things happen, guys need quarterbacks. You can use Trevor Lawrence as trade bait to get a better deal in return for a quarterback that somebody else desperately needs. It's really a good idea, and it didn't wear you too thin, except that really the running back position. Then we move on, and you back yourself up with another running back. It's Raheem Mostert. So the Dolphins lead or second back, once again, I talked about this with Devon Achane. It's a committee running back room. We see weeks where obviously Raheem Mostert scored like 20 touchdowns last season. He was awesome, and he's getting more of the red zone carries, which is a problem for Devon Achane. Obviously, they're both going to have their weeks that are good, that are bad, but I don't think anybody takes over that running back room unless somebody gets hurt. So if obviously Achane re-injures himself, great pickup of Mostert. He can slide in over Zamir White. Otherwise, you really got to pick your shots well with Raheem Mostert. don't really know how to feel about him. It's, once again, very similar to DJ Moore and Stephon Diggs. What version of Mostert are you going to get? Is somebody else going to take his points? Moving down the board, you get another tight end. You get Dallas Goedert from the Philadelphia Eagles. Honestly, I like the pick of Dallas Goedert. He's a solid tight end, and he's going to have some pretty solid weeks. Obviously, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are there, but obviously if we see more tight end work and he's getting more receptions, he's a viable option to plug and play over David Njoku, and you don't really have to sweat that. Moving down the board again, Jerry Jeudy. He's in a new home. He's with the Cleveland Browns now, so you'll have to compete with Amari Cooper, but overall, he's the wide receiver too. I think he's got the possibility to break out, but it all depends on the Cleveland quarterback room. They've had so many injuries, so many different quarterbacks, so inconsistent with passing the ball. I don't know if Jerry Jeudy's valid or not. We're going to find out, but I don't mind the pick from the look of it at the beginning of the year, and already the bench is really stacked. And moving forward, you back up Xavier Leggett, the final pick in the first round out of South Carolina. Cannot understand what he says. He's got that thick Southern accent, but still, he's probably going to get some playing time. He's going to be one of those 3 receivers that's put out on the 3 sets for the Carolina Panthers. Could be good. I don't mind the pick because you've got to take a risk on a rookie or a second-year guy. This is a guy that I think is worth taking a risk on. If he's good, great. If he's not, that's fine. He's your wide receiver 5. You have nothing to worry about. And then we move to probably what makes this bench even better. It's a 4th quarterback, and it's another quarterback too. It's Aaron Rodgers. That's right. Aaron Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, Joe Burrow. You have 4 starting caliber quarterbacks on your roster, which really works in your favor. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers coming off a terrible 4-snap injury. It was horrible. But nonetheless, Aaron Rodgers is here to play and hopefully is healthy this season. And honestly, I don't mind it. You can take a flyer on him if he doesn't pan out. No worries. You've got 3 other starting quarterbacks. And what I think makes it better for you is Trevor Lawrence or Aaron Rodgers, even Caleb Williams, can be used for trade bait because guess what? It's the same thing I said about Trevor Lawrence. Somebody's going to need a quarterback at some point, and you can get better value for them later on. So, love this bench, and we're not even done. So you have 4 starting caliber quarterbacks. I'd expect eventually either one of them to get moved or dropped if injuries happen. We'll find out, but love the pickup of Aaron Rodgers. As long as he can stay healthy, it's a risky but well-risked pick because he's so buried on the depth chart. And obviously, if he returns to form of, back-to-back MVP years, this could be a phenomenal pick for you. And then rounding out the bench, you took another risky pick. I don't mind it. You went out and got Nick Chubb. Obviously, we all saw the injury. We all know Nick Chubb is probably not going to be the same when he comes back. But if he is, guess what? You've got a hole to fill at the running back position. And all of a sudden, you got Nick Chubb in like the 100th range of picks. So it was a risk well taken. But obviously, I don't think the Cleveland Browns are going to rush this guy back. I've been told he might play, a couple weeks in, which is insane to me because of that injury. I thought, it's going to be a full year before we see this guy. Who knows? I don't think he's going to be the same running back, but he could come back and prove us all wrong. But nonetheless, I like the risk of the last 3 picks where you also balance it with some safe picks. So that is the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels roster. I love the bench. And, obviously the starters, running back position's tough, and I've got a lot of question marks with the wide receivers and a couple question marks with the quarterbacks, but I think overall this is a well-built team that can, stay consistent, and let's get you those predictions now. So looking at this team, obviously I mentioned a lot of the question marks, and if those question marks don't go great, and obviously you're more of an up-and-down team, and, you can pull from this bench, I think the bench unit continues to, wilt those doubts because obviously, somebody doesn't pan out. You've got a bench worth, plugging and playing somebody up to another level that can go out and, keep you consistent. And because of that, your floor is 5-9 because your bench covers you so well. I don't see this team not getting 5 wins, because I feel like this is going to be a team that, consistently putting up some solid points. You'll get a couple big weeks from Tyreek Hill, maybe Joe Burrow, Stephon Diggs, Alvin Kamara finds a good game all at once. This could be a team that can go over 200 in any given week and could be a problem. So the floor is 5-9. Moving on to the flip side of things, let's look at the positive, the ceiling. If everything goes right, Stephon Diggs turns out to be the number one guy. DJ Moore stays consistent. Caleb Williams is that guy, or Aaron Rodgers is that guy. Trevor Lawrence. If any of your quarterbacks, if you get a duo that's phenomenal and you can obviously trade somebody and you get more value in, this team, the ceiling, 10-4 for the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels. This team could be a top defender in the league and could be gunning for the championship game if everything gels nicely. So that brings me to the middle ground. Where is my prediction for this team? Obviously, we have the Zestmeisters just missing the playoffs at 6-9, and I think this is definitely a Guantanamo Bay team that is going to have its fair shares of up and down weeks. I'm sure one of these quarterbacks will be moved out eventually to get more value into that running back room, because that running back room is the weak spot for me right now. So because of the ups and downs of the season, I'm going to give this team a 7-7 record, especially because the NFC, I think, is just going to be a harder division. So there'll be plenty of ups and downs. So the final prediction for the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels is 7-7 with a lot of, highs and lows this season, which, they'll have to navigate. But I think they find a way to sneak into the playoffs just above the Zestmeisters at that last playoff spot. So that'll conclude our episode today. A lot of question marks with this team. A lot of, guys that are the third option, and the bench is crazy. I mean, the fact that you have 2 starting caliber quarterbacks sitting on your bench tells you there's a lot of trades to come in the future and that this team is well equipped with substitutions when needed. The running back room will have to be, finalized, but I think it's enough. The Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels, in my prediction, will be the number 6 team and sneak into the playoffs for the 3rd out of 4 years. So that'll do it for today's video. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know what you think down below. Is this a Flying Squirrels team that can make it in? Do you agree with some of my takes? Let me know in the comments below. When we come back, we're into the top 5. We get that number 5 team next time here on the Nathan Fantasy Football League Network.